Yes, thank you again, Lindsay, for inviting me to be a part of this talk with these educators. It is certainly my pleasure. If you don't know who I am, I'm going to introduce myself here in just a minute, but I just want to welcome all of you to our time here and begin to share my screen because I want to jump right on in with what I feel is going to be a very impactful talk. And then I want to hear from you a little later on. So stay tuned, stay with us the whole time. Let some of your friends know that we're in and we're having a great discussion around you, the educator, and what is best for you and with you, concerning you during this season. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see here. But before I do, if you have a moment and can, go ahead and put in the chat. Lindsay's going to be helping us with the chat. Place in the chat where you're watching from the state and how many years of teaching, first year or several years, and then also include the grade level of content that you are teaching while I go ahead and begin to share. Let me know if you can see the screen. Lindsay, let me know if we're sharing properly. I'm gonna go right to the beginning.
Yes, ma'am, I can see it.
All right, perfect. I'm going to move this little dialogue out of the way. Hopefully we're getting some of our friends here sharing in the chat, letting us know where you're calling, where you're watching us from, what content area that you serve, and your years in education. Lindsay, do we have some people already sharing there?
We do. We have an 8th grade math and math intervention, a first year, 3rd grade math and science teacher, North Carolina, first year teaching incoming, and then another first year teacher. It sounds like incoming. So we've got a great crew here.
Good deal. We have a great group here this evening. So as Lindsay mentioned, I am Briana Henderson, the educator's advocate, and we are going to pace ourselves. So this is what I want you to keep in mind throughout our entire talk here. Pace yourself. All right. So let's look at our next slide here. Briana Henderson, founder and CEO of the Educator's Advocate. I want you to know what that is and how it serves you. We are a coaching and consulting group serving educators in the private and public sectors through personal and professional development. I have also included my website there. I also want you to know that I, like you, am an educator through and through. Former public school teacher, did that for several years, also in the private sector. Instructional coach, I was a curriculum writer, PD presenter for the district, and served as a campus principal as well. Educators have my heart and service. And so much of my work now has to do with what I'm doing here, which is presenting, but just serving and having fun with educators is a part of what I do. So what I want you to do is take a screenshot of this information, because as Lindsay mentioned, I love to entertain, have fun with my educators, because I know that that is an extremely needed and necessary part of what we do as campus leaders and as those who serve educators. We have to make these moments light. We have to make them meaningful so that you can be of service to your scholars. So you can find me on YouTube, on Instagram, and on TikTok under The Educator's Advocate. I'm also on Twitter under Briana Advocates, and below you see my email. So I would love to hear from you if you have questions, even beyond our session and time here together. Well, just like any educator, imagine me being in my classroom, let's just say my 4th grade classroom where I taught reading and writing. My students, by the way, scored well, even though we don't look at these state exams as the end all be all, but I am proud and was proud of those successes. But I'm in the classroom. I have my objectives on the board. I can even have my demonstration of learning on the board. And where do I want to start with you educators tonight? My objective for you, and I hope part of your takeaway, is this. The first year teacher understands A, B, and C. I'm going to give you a moment to kind of look over today's objectives, and I'm going to give a quick highlight of what they are. So just take a moment. If you're looking over them just like me, you see gifts, you see talents, you see the education profession. You probably see words like achieve, success, and excellence. As you're looking over those objectives, just right there in the chat, I want you to tell me what words stuck out for you. What phrases stand out to you as objectives that we're going to cover in our brief time here together? Go ahead and place those in the chat, and Lindsay will share out a couple of those as they come in. What stood out most to you by way of words, keywords, or phrases? You see some coming in, Lindsay?
Oh, yeah. I love the phrase, you have what it takes. Manageable. That's really great. You have what it takes. Yep, that's my favorite one too.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing those of you who are participating in this time here together. These are our objectives for this evening. I want you to understand as a takeaway that these objectives for you, whether you're a first year teacher or not, I know we have a third grade math educator in the building as well as eighth grade. No matter where we are, we can take from and glean from our time. So what do I want you to do? I want you to pace yourself. And I want to be clear on this acronym PACE and what it means for you and for me as educators. In order to reach the objectives that we just took a moment and looked over, we must pace ourselves. Well, how do we do that? Well, first, we need to know what the acronym stands for. Let's look here together. The P is for perform, A is for at, C is for capacity, and E is for efficiently. Now, let me tell you, as educators, we hopefully are choosing our words correctly when we're working with our students. And I chose these words I say correctly, but I chose them on purpose. And I'm going to show you here in just a minute. You probably, like me, are thinking, I know the meaning of each of those words. And I thought I did too, until I looked them up. Do you mind doing a quick word study? I'm looking at you, you're on the side, your pictures are on the side of my screen, but let's do a quick word study because I want you to understand exactly what I mean when I say pace yourself, because it is necessary. Here's our word study for the word perform and the word at. You, in order to pace yourself and be successful with the objectives we just outlined, need to know what perform means. And yes, you perform as an educator, whether you're in the classroom, on the campus, or even in your community. So perform means to carry out or accomplish, fulfill the task, the action. That's exactly what you do in the classroom and at your campus level. You're also a presenter. Did any of you know, did you know that you're presenting? Some of you feel like you're entertaining sometimes. Some of you think that you're an actor in the class. We do it all, don't we? So I want you to know that when you're pacing yourself, part of that is perform. You're showing up, you're being present, you're taking time needed as well. But when you're there and you're ready to perform, carry out and accomplish the task and present it. But not only that, let's take a look at a preposition. I want you to perform at, not perform in, not perform of, but perform at. I'm talking about a particular position that I want you to perform in. So let's look at this preposition. It expresses a location, place, or position. It also expresses the time that something takes place. That number one is where we're going, the number one definition. So you're going to perform, and you're going to perform in a particular way or position. And let me tell you what that is. According to your capacity. This is one of the most important words in our acronym PACE. Perform at capacity. Listen, it has to do with your capacity, not your team lead's capacity, not your instructional coach, not your counselor, not your friend down the hall, not your parents that call you about their students, not your neighbor, not your mom who's been in education for years. It's according to your capacity. Well, let's take a look at capacity. It's the maximum amount that something can contain, and you're the something, the maximum amount for you. But look at number two's definition. And just in case we didn't know what we're doing, we're taking a deep dive into if we're going to pace ourselves and realize the objectives that we just uncovered, we need to know in what ways we're going to pace ourselves. And it's according to our capacity. Look at number two's definition, the amount that something can produce. So here we are looking at you as a container, and we're also looking at you as a producer. You're both, educator. You're both third grade teacher, eighth grade teacher, first year teacher. You're both. So that's why your performance, if you will, needs to be at your capacity. You know, I was thinking about this as I was putting together our talk and our time. And I thought to myself, when I think of pint and I think of gallon, no one looks at the pint and is mad at the pint for not having the capacity of a gallon. We just expect the pint to do its pintness. We expect it to perform in the way with which it was made and what it can hold, and also produce in that way. So I want you to look at yourself as that as well. We're going to unpack that a little bit later, but that's very, very important. You want longevity, you want to get rid of imposter syndrome, perform at your capacity. Let's look next at efficiently. Perform at capacity. In what way, Briana? Efficiently. In a way that achieves maximum productivity. When I look at that pint jar, and I fill it to the brim, it is achieving its maximum productivity. And when I look at that gallon person, that gallon educator that has the capacity that they have, I expect it to achieve maximum productivity as well. But look at this next part of number one's definition: with minimum wasted effort or expense. We're going to talk a little bit later how to pace yourself and how to utilize those around you. So efficiency is also in a well-organized and competent way. You want to have a culture in your classroom of organization and respect. You're going to perform at capacity efficiently. And we're going to share a couple of ways that that's going to happen. All right. I'm going to take a little moment. Let's take a deep breath. I hope this is just so far helped a little bit, but we're going to go even deeper. Let's take a look at the next picture. Now, if you're like me, you see these and you see, well, before I even tell you what you see, I want you to tell us. Lindsay, get ready because they're going to light up the chat.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's first compare, if you will. You are an educator. You know the difference between comparing and contrasting. Let's compare. In the chat, share with us, how are the pictures, the one on the left and right, similar? Go ahead and begin to type in the chat. How are the pictures on the left and the right, the two that you see, how are they similar?
They're both heading towards a specific goal. I love that. And they both display runners. The runners are on a track. Great, you guys. They're all trying to achieve the same goal. Yep, I think that's so important.
Yeah. Thanks, Lindsay. And thank you guys for participating in this talk. So you see that they're on a track. You see that they're running. Now let's contrast. In what ways, light up the chat, in what ways are the pictures different? What is the difference that you notice?
The girl by herself is not competing with anyone else for success.
Come on.
Some are competing against others. The left is teamwork and the right is more individualized. That's so great. Yeah.
Okay. I love it. I love it.
Team versus individual. One has multiple runners, one has a single.
Thank you, you guys. You guys are so on it and you're making my job so much easier. Listen, you're on target with what is happening in this picture. It's going to illustrate for you, and I hope that it is what I say when I say pace yourself. On the left, if you see, it's on my left, I see multiple runners. I see them all on the same track. I see them all in individual lanes. I see one in front of the other, and they're at different parts of the race. And I see that they're appearing to compete because they aren't wearing the same shirt. And then on the right, I see one runner on a track in a lane, comfortably dressed, with nature behind them or in front of them, with no one to look at, and the sun in front of them. I want you to know that the picture on the right is what I'm hoping you see yourself as, educator. You are not only in your own lane, you have your own track. And you can look at that with your career. You can look at that with life. There is no one competing next to you. You're running your own race. If you look at it, she's in the middle of the track. You started somewhere. You could have started somewhere here at the first of the track when you were seeking to become an educator, when you were going to school, when you were passing tests, when you were talking to colleagues, when you were getting support that you needed. And now you find yourself here. And look, there are more lanes for you to run in. It depends on the season you're in. What am I saying to you? In order to be successful, in order for you to obtain the objectives that we mentioned earlier, you're going to have to pace yourself. And all that means is you're going to have to perform at capacity efficiently yourself. You're not running against anyone. I hope that's encouraging to you. There are people who are doing it and doing it well. Just know they're on their own track. You're on yours. So stay focused. Stay focused. You have this. You have what it takes. All right, let's take a look at the next. In order to pace ourselves, in order to perform at capacity efficiently, I want you educators to zoom all the way into your classroom. Then we're going to take a step back and look at you at the campus level. Then we're going to take another step back and we're going to look at you as it relates to your career. So from the campus, in your classroom, you, on the campus, you, and in your career, you. So let's take a look at campus. Pace yourself. Perform at capacity efficiently. Let's start first in the classroom. What do you need to do in order to meet the objectives we outlined at the beginning of our talk? I need you to lessen your load. Lessen your load. Well, Briana, there's so much that's coming at me. I know. I hear you. I hear you. But there are ways that you're going to determine. There are ways that are soon to come. There are ways that that I'm going to show you here that you need to and can lessen your loads. How do you do that? Lessen your load with clear expectations. I have the box here. Okay, I'm gonna move you guys to the middle. Lessen your load with clear classroom expectations, upheld by systems and procedures, including student jobs that work in your and the student's best interest. Let me tell you, if those procedures and systems are working in your best interest, they're working in the student's best interest. We need you at your best. We need you to pace yourself. And in order to do that, let's lessen your load. Clear expectations for your classroom. Culture is what you want. A classroom culture that is positive. And the way that you uphold that culture is through classroom management. Classroom culture, classroom management. You're managing what? If you haven't established the culture that you want. Well, you lessen your load by making sure that your students, your scholars, whoever enters your classroom knows the expectation. You say you want a culture of order. You want students to know where they put their backpack when they come in, if that's the case with your building. Where do they place their assignments if they're turning in work with you? Where do they go sharpen their pencil then? Do we have anyone on here that remembers the days of sharpening your? Okay, so where do they sharpen their pencils? Where do they collect their pencils? All of the above. And I can go on and on with order. I want a classroom of order. Well, I have to put in systems for that to happen. And I can definitely lessen the load by having students support me with those type of needed tasks, but are mundane and time consuming. I'm talking about pacing yourself. I'm talking about performing at capacity efficiently, and do it by doing so. We need to enlist the help of others. And I don't care if it's a pre-K or a 12th grader. Students love to help teachers. They love to jump in there and do what it takes to make your job easier. I know that they do. I've seen it in action. So we're going to lessen your load. We want clear classroom expectations. Depending on your campus, you may have systems in place for behavior. Maybe you didn't, maybe you're like me and you created them yourself. But students understood how they were to walk into my classroom. They weren't coming in loud, bustling and all of that, pushing. No, you will go back out. And that's what you have to do. So that's my management. You walk in to a quiet atmosphere. It depended on what we were doing for the day. That was the culture. But my management was, if someone was not doing that, they went right on back out that door and came in the right way after a couple of seconds or a minute or two. But you get my drift. I want you to pace yourself. Remember that you're going to perform at capacity efficiently, but to do so, you need to lessen your load. Take off your plate, because your classroom is yours. Take off your plate those tasks that you've created and give those to those who could help you. And your students could be those who do. All right. Let's take a second. Classroom, lessen your load. I want you to take a second and read from this particular slide. And Lindsay's going to be ready because I want you to light up the chat. Share with me what stands out from what is presented in this quote. I'll give you a second to read and then share in the chat what word, what phrase stands out from this particular slide.
Values. Yeah, great. Great. Values again.
Thank you.
Therese.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for those of you who are sharing in the chat and just engaging in this way. Listen, you cannot teach and students cannot learn in a classroom where values for the learning environment are not expressed and upheld. Do you see those two? They work in tandem. In order for you to pace yourself and perform at capacity efficiently, you must lessen your load. And you do that by expressing and upholding. You can talk all day, but if there are no consequences and or rewards, you've seen the classroom that goes downhill and goes downhill really fast.
We just had someone say the same thing, expressed and upheld. So it's those things work together.
We work together. And I'm so glad you see that. There's nothing like being in the classroom, a classroom where you see things working. And the teacher's over there doing what she can do with small groups. I started to throw in a video of me at the table with my small group and what the others were. I said, no, these educators get the picture. You've seen it all. You can YouTube stuff like that. But I want you to know, lessen your load so you can pace yourself by expressing and upholding. Thank you for those of you who joined in on that little exercise. We're not done. Because remember, we were looking at you in your classroom. Now let's take a look at you at the campus level. You're going to pace yourself. You're running on your own track and in your own lane. So let's look at you at the campus level. I want you to exercise choice. Do you have a problem with saying no? Do you have a problem sometimes with, turning down that wonderful opportunity to gain experience? Yeah, I'm going to tell you this. As a campus administrator, I loved those teachers who loved to be the go-to teacher. I did. I truly did. They were a support to me and they were a support to, to the campus. Excuse me. And so I did. I loved it. But I want you to exercise choice in optional tasks. You say, Briana, what do you mean? All I mean is this. There are things that you have to do at your campus, obviously. You're at work. and in your classroom where instruction is taking place, and then all of the administrative duties that you have to do. Those are there. You have to get those done. But then there are optional tasks. Resist the temptation to take on additional tasks, because remember what we're talking about. Pace yourself has all to do with your capacity. And as a new teacher, you don't yet know what your capacity is. As a third year teacher, fourth year teacher, you don't know what this next year's school year's capacity will bring or will be needed of you, because remember, it's pouring out from you and it's what you're able to contain. So you don't know, so pace yourself in that area. There are optional tasks. I'll give you examples. There's a meeting coming up. There's tasks to be done. There's a project to be managed. There are groups to oversee. There are after-school duties to attend. And hey, I'm the campus administrator and I'm pacing myself. But, and in order for me to do that, I'm looking at you to see if you'll perhaps jump in and chime in, because I want you to have experience. Right. I say that tongue in cheek, but oftentimes it can truly work that way. But here's what we're going to do, because we want to actually do with excellence the objectives that we've outlined for the school year. We're going to perform at capacity efficiently. And so if there's an optional task, we're going to let Susie down the hall take that on. If there's an optional task that we say, you know what, I would love for them to see me shine, see me stand out. No, I'm telling you something. I see educators shine when I see them in that classroom, most of all, first and foremost. So resist the temptation.
Briana, we have somebody wanting to know how to say like no politely. And so one of the things I responded with, and I'll let you take it away really, but I
love that.
It's okay to say, thank you for thinking of me. This will give you an opportunity. My plate is currently full, but this is a great opportunity for you to elevate a voice of someone else on our staff, someone else in my department, and really give them an opportunity to shine. Not throw someone under the bus by giving like a name, because that's really not
right.
But it's really good to thank them for thinking of you and share that you would love to help, but right now you just feel pretty maxed out or at your capacity, to use the verbiage we've been working with tonight. Absolutely.
Lindsay, you're spot on. And thank you for those who are in the chat and are asking questions in that way, because that's a real thing. Listen, if I come directly to it, sometimes you'll have the net thrown from the administrator. We need this done. That's a great way to just kind of sit with that and think, do I have the capacity? I could, but I really don't. And just sit with it. But then there is that time that they come to you one-on-one. And here's my rule with that. What Lindsay shared, take that as your language and operate in the 24-hour rule.
Yes, so important.
Give yourself time and space. You do not have to respond right now. Typically, this is what I knew and know. Those educators who gave boundaries to me in that way, I respected that. And I also knew, but in the back of my head, that it probably was going to be a no. I just, because usually you say yes right up front, but it doesn't have to be that way. That was just the way that I thought. But here's the thing, give yourself time. 24-hour rule, give yourself space. Do not feel obligated to respond in that way. Thank you for asking that question. And thanks, Lindsay, for jumping right on in. That is so appropriate and adds to this talk. So we looked at you, educator, at the classroom level, how you're going to pace yourself for this school year, be intentional, develop and look at the capacity that you have. You're a pint, you're a gallon. Neither one of them we're mad at for who they are. We just want them to perform with excellence at that level. So let's take a deeper dive. Campus, let's take it to your career. But before we do, did we look at this slide already?
Yes, ma'am.
We did. Okay. I'm going in the wrong direction. That's what it is. Here, We're taking a look at another slide. So get ready, educators, with your fingers to get into the chat. What phrase, what words stand out to you from our takeaway from the former slide? Take a look and then tell us in the chat. Lindsay's going to share.
It doesn't mean you.
Dun, 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 dun. I needed like a little,
A drum roll.
a drum roll, right?
Yeah.
Hear me clearly, just from the perspective of an administrator, especially when I'm doing the net. Even sometimes when I come to you, I'm just looking for someone's yes. I'm looking for someone. And of course, I want that someone to have the capacity and be willing and ready and able and skillful and all of that. But I'm really looking for someone's yes. So do not feel obligated is all that I'm saying to you. Give yourself space, give yourself time, and don't be so, overly excited to be that one. I'm telling you, you be that one this time, you're going to be that one the next time too. And I'm going to come to you the next time. And then you'll feel like you can't, I don't want you to get to that space or place. Exercise your no in the way that Lindsay shared with you. Give yourself the 24-hour boundary rule. You'll be just fine. Remember, these are optional tasks. These are optional. All right. Let me make sure I'm going in the right direction. There we go. We're pacing ourselves, educators. We're on our own track. We're in our own lane. We're not competing with anyone. Let them if they want to do that. But we're pacing ourselves. We will perform at capacity efficiently. Now let's talk career. I took you from your classroom to your campus, now your career. I want you to look at your career, and you and I both see and know what's going on out there. No, we're going to stay focused on our own track and in our own lane. Let gratitude be your daily bread. Being grateful. I'm going to tell you this. If you're in the profession, be all in. And the way that you're all in is you look at things with the mentality of I get to versus I have to. You and I see the difference. We know the difference relationally, just with our friends, our partners, our friendships, our family, in relationships. When you have a sense of, or you get from them a sense of, I get to be with you, I get to participate in life with you in this way, it makes all the difference in showing up. It makes all the difference in putting your best foot forward. It makes all the difference in even growing your capacity versus I have to. Your career is going to be fine. When we talk about longevity, there are educators who are resigning and or leaving the field at 25, 27, 32 years. And this particular field is one that we could do that in. We don't know what the future will bring. That's why we're taking it one day at a time, one semester at a time, and one school year at a time. But I'm telling you this, let gratitude be your daily bread. So I'll just read this particular slide. This perspective is key. I get to versus I have to. I get to serve students in unique ways. I get to work with colleagues to create experiences. I get to learn with campus leaders on best approaches. I get to make a difference in someone's life. If you've been an educator, those of you, I know we had a third grade teacher on, an eighth grade teacher, some of you are first year teachers. You yourself had a teacher before. You yourself had a mentor. You had someone you looked up to, and their word was bond. They made an impact on you in a positive way. So you know that what we do, what we've done, it impacts lives. And sometimes we'll never really get to see at what level just something you said, something you did really affected another person's life positively. But that's the beauty of what we get to do. So pace yourself, perform at capacity efficiently. And in regards to your career, you're going to be fine if you let your daily bread be gratitude. All right, so let's take a look. We have our last slide here, and I hope you're ready in the chat. You probably are familiar with what we're going to do. So if there's a word or a phrase that stands out to you from our summation of that particular slide, go ahead and light up the chat. Lindsay, whenever you're ready.
Serve well with a grateful heart. Called to serve well. I love the word called. That word is so powerful.
It's so powerful, isn't it? Isn't it?
It
I
is.
agree
Serve
with
with a
you.
grateful heart. And that again, yep, you guys are hitting the nail on the head tonight.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you guys for
Oh,
participating in this time.
here's a good one. At
Yeah.
this space and time.
Do you see what I mean? Oh my goodness, if you were a student, space and time. I chose those words because remember, you're on a track and you're in a particular lane right now. This season of your life, this season of your career, this is where you are. So this space and time, yeah, we're relegated to that.
No matter what is going on.
I love it.
Beautiful. It may not be right now, but it may be in a year or two. Yeah.
Yeah. No matter what's going on in the field, you've seen what you've heard, guys. We won't even get into it, but we're going to be grateful that we get to serve to where we're called to right now for the space and time that we have. And we're going to do it well with a grateful heart. Let's take a look at this picture again. Before we get into some more discussion and our time together that has to do with more questions and more answers, let's take a look. Before we had all of the information that I've shared with you in front of us, but now we have that information that I've shared with you behind us. Now let's take a look at that picture and what else can you pull from these two pictures that more so speak to what we've shared here in our time together. I'll give you some think time for you to contemplate and just rehearse and remind yourself what's already been shared.
It says run your own race. Teaching is not a competition. On the right, you're pacing yourself. Personally, I see someone at a finish line versus someone in the middle of something, and they're two different spaces in their journey.
Yeah,
it matters.
Absolutely, Lindsay. Absolutely. And thank you guys for jumping in as well and sharing. You're right. When I look at that young lady on the right and I see the group of women on the left, we're all dedicated to something, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. I see that you guys are great.
Come on.
Yeah, there's right is in it for the long haul, not looking at others, staying focused on yourself. If you pace yourself, you can make it to the finish line. Taking time to relish the moment. On the right, it's so much more serene. Being you. Oh man, you guys are so great.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And you can continue to do so there in the chat. And Lindsay, at any moment, if you want to just share out some more. But you're right. This is you, educator, on the right. This is how I want you to see yourself. It's not a competition. And administrators put up numbers and brackets and they show you data and you're required to disaggregate the data, and depending on what systems you use, NWEA, MAPS, all of the above, what they bring to the table. And you're looking at this and you're thinking, Susie down the hall, children are doing better than mine. Or if you're in a content area at secondary level and you're just wanting more, you're in your own lane. And more than that, you're on your own track. And your students are over there with you. And they're making their way with you. There's no competition. So I love what you shared. I love what you shared and what you've gleaned so far since we've kind of given more depth to the two pictures that we have here. I want to share with you before we jump into Q&A, excuse me, this picture. I have so many as an educator. First of all, I take pictures, period, in my life. I do videos, pictures, all of the above. But I chose this one for our time here today. My name is Briana. This young lady's name happens to be Briana. Briana was one of our fourth graders at the time on the campus where I was an administrator. And Briana comes up to me. You can't see the entire picture, but she has a gift. And she's, Miss Henderson, I wanted to give you this gift. And I'm in the hallway. And this is all during the time that we gather in our, before we go to our classrooms, we would all gather in the gym and we would have just this time together of announcements. And it was just a beautiful public school situation in the gym. And the students were very receptive. We would also do our flags and all of that. Sometimes I would sing with them. Sometimes we would do hula hoop dance. I mean, it's that kind of thing. But Briana comes up to me as I'm looking at students go down the hallway, and I'm admiring their protocol, and I'm just sharing with them how amazed I am and blah, 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 all the things. And she hands me this gift. And she says, Miss Henderson, I just want to give you something. And so she did. And I talked later with her parents because, of course, I thank them because I know that if Briana's giving me something, her parents were involved in all of that as well. It was a bought gift. And so I talked to them and they said, Miss Henderson, you don't know how much Briana talks about you at home. Now, this isn't a student in my classroom. This was a scholar on the campus where I was an administrator. And I said, well, what does she say? So I'm just, kind of bantering with them in that way and just having fun with it. But then it just got kind of serious. And they said, she really wants to be like you. She wants to dress like you. We had dress days on Monday where you would dress up. We call it professional dress day. And she said, they say every time she's thinking, what would Miss Henderson wear? I'm sharing all of this with you, educators, because whether you are a first-year teacher or whether you've been teaching for some years now, students like Briana are all around us. They're watching us, and we get to serve them, and we make a difference in their lives in ways we have no idea. So what we do is not trivial at all, but in order to be successful, you have to pace yourself. I want you to look at yourself in the classroom. I want you to observe yourself at the campus level. And then I want you to back out and look at yourself career-wise. And in pacing yourself, I know that you're going to perform at capacity efficiently and run your own race in your own lane and on your own track. Well, Lindsay, I'm going to turn it over to you. We're at Q&A. Thank you guys so much for this time, and hopefully something I shared and what we shared even in the chat, because that's important too. It added to this time together, was beneficial, and you'll take with you as you go into the school year.
Absolutely, Briana, thank you. I am sitting here and I'm like, I remember so much about being in education and being a teacher and loving what I did and loving my kids. But what I love the most about what you're saying to our new teachers is the idea that, like, your race is yours. That's it. And I think if I had known that in 2006 when I got my first classroom, if I had known that, I might have slowed down a little. I might have smelled the roses a little. I might have just appreciated my own gifts as a teacher a little bit more, instead of wanting to be like that teacher or this teacher or go to this committee or that committee. No one, I don't think you know what you're doing and who you are as a teacher for a while. But you have to allow yourself the time and the space to figure that out.
That's it.
You do. And I think you will get there. But being able to pace yourself so you can and it is a gift that you're going to give yourself, so you know yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
As a teacher. And I love that.
I love that. I love that. Thank you, Lindsay, for just perfectly placing a bow on our conversation today, because we do want our educators to know that there's so much out there, and you feel like you need to go into that classroom with all of it, as if you're that gallon jug of,
Yeah.
if pace yourself, and you'll see your capacity grow over time. So I love that. I'll just sit this right here as well. And we're going to jump, those of you who are in the chat, I want you to participate by asking any questions that you have. I know that we had one during our talk, which was so appropriate.
If you want to, I understand that sometimes being off camera and muted is an act of self-care after a long day. I understand. And we don't want to force you to come on camera, but if you would use that hand raising feature, or if you want to just unmute yourself really quick and chime in, I'm going to stay back and let you have a dialogue with Briana. You hear enough of my voice. So if you have something you want to know, or if you have something you're curious about, please feel free to ask that.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And as they're typing in, either in the chat or raising their hand, I was talking to an educator about our talk today, and it's so true, Lindsay, what you shared, which is stay in your own lane, knowing that you are on your own track. So I'm really hoping that resonates with a lot of our educators who are listening.
Yeah, I have a question in the chat from Sierra.
Yeah, hey, Sharice.
Oh yeah, Sierra's in the chat, and then I'm going to come back to Sharice if that's
perfect. Okay,
sure.
Perfect.
Sierra said, I sometimes have issues with imposter syndrome. I feel like I'm just pretending, and people are believing that I will be a successful teacher of my own classroom when I finally start in the fall. I don't feel like a teacher yet. I've been a sub for 4 years, and so she feels like she's pretending to know what she's doing.
Yeah, that term, imposter syndrome, we've seen that a lot. So will we shape our thoughts? And so what I would challenge and what I would encourage is, instead of pretending, you're practicing.
There you go.
Right? We're practicing. You're practicing for your classroom. And when you get your practice, as you continue to practice, you'll see with results that will bring the confidence that you're looking for. And so that's what has to happen. So instead of pretending, you're practicing, and people see that your practice is actually good. And that when you get in that space and you start to create experiences, you'll begin to feel more confident over what it is that you're teaching, what it is that you're presenting to your students, and they'll see it in the results of them as well. So we're not pretending, we're practicing. We're going to change that language.
I like the shift, right?
Yeah. And just shifting that language even helps us to think of things differently and just walk differently, because imposter syndrome is a real feeling and sense. But no, you're practicing.
There you go. Sharice?
Yeah. Hi, can you hear me?
Hey, yes. Sharice, we hear you.
Oh, great. I had a question. Well, a little bit of background. I just completed my first year of teaching this past school year, third grade science, and it was an interesting year.
To say the least.
To say the least. And I did my student teaching in the fall of 2020. Even then, this school year was completely different from that. I really don't think anybody could have prepared me for all the changes. But going into my second year, I'm kind of wondering, what tips do you guys have about self-care? Because I struggled with that during this past year. Like I would stay up late, get up early to try to get things done, and I found it really hard to pace myself. What advice would you give with that? Because it's like, I'm new, I want to do a good job, but I just haven't figured that part out yet.
Yeah. I love the fact that you just desire to do that, Sharice. You desire to do a good job. And so I know that you will. Those tasks that you've created in your classroom, especially by way of like systems or anything that takes up time, see who could help you with those. whether it's other students, you said it's third grade, or whether it's electronically. I know that what helped me with a lot of the workload, especially if it's grading, was presenting material electronically. So I would create Google Forms to do quick assessments or quizzes, and it would grade the assessments right then and there. And so instead of grading and entering, I was just grading, or I'm sorry, I was just entering. So just kind of looking, self-care is more so having to do with what tasks do I create for myself in the learning environment that I can do, can't do, or can just do without, and lessening some of those so I'm not taking it home, or et cetera, et cetera. Do I need to grade every assignment that I give? It's an act of self-care. Can I just use it as a loose, assessment for where we're going, projections, those sorts of things. And then knowing, Sharice, at the end of a good day, that you did what you could for that day, and the next day will come and you'll do what you can for that day. So that's what I would say. Lindsay, do you have more that you can share or add?
I think, everyone always says, practice self-care and set boundaries, but they don't really share with you how to do that, you know? And I think that that's a travesty a little bit, because right now, teachers, we just pile on teachers. We just ask them to do and do and do and do without really doing or giving back to them in tremendous ways. And so, I used to, when I was a baby teacher, before I had children of my own, before I was anyone's mother, if you're anyone's mother, you know that life changes tremendously, or anyone's father, you know that life changes tremendously when that happens. But before I was someone's mother, I think I felt like I could live at school. Like I could unpack and move in there, and I could stay. And then I realized that I didn't really want to move in at school. And so I would cut myself off. Like I'm staying until like I was a high school teacher. So my day ended a little earlier. So 2:20, the afternoon bell rang, and I would say, all right, I'm staying until 4. And whatever isn't finished at 4 is just going to wait till tomorrow. And I would do that 2 or 3 or 4 days a week, depending on what I needed. I never stayed on Fridays. That was a practice that I implemented throughout my career. If a student would say, can you stay on Friday? No, I cannot. I love you, but I'm going to go home now. And I always took a Friday afternoon nap. And I stuck to my Friday afternoon nap, even when I was someone's mother. So there's things like that. There's grading that just doesn't have to happen. For me, it was always kind of completion credit, unless it was an assessment of some kind. And then I would grade for accuracy, because completion, you can assess students without sitting down to grade. And you can assess students by speaking to them and engaging in an effective dialogue that doesn't require you to do anything outside of those 50 minutes or however many minutes you have with them of a given day. So I learned different ways to assess and use hinge questions and differentiate that were easier for me to then also have my own life and be my own human being. And that was really important, especially I'm lucky enough to be married to an educator. So it's a person who speaks the language and understands. But if you aren't, that can be very difficult to explain. So I really think it's about just saying this is what I have to give today. So I'm working at my capacity for today, right? And then once I've given all I'm willing to give for today or able to give for today, then I'm done giving, and I'm going to start taking some of my time and energy back. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that.
No.
I was an English teacher. I graded essays, and sometimes it took me 2 or 3 weeks to get them back, and that's okay. And really the way I would explain it to my students was if it took you a long time to write this paper, and I want to give it the time in my assessment, so we are reciprocating your work, with mine. But it just is what it is sometimes. And that's all right, because human beings in the business of other human beings, there's going to have to be room for and margin for error and margin for space.
Yeah. And I think a lot
Thank
of
you so
that
much.
too. Yeah, our pleasure, Sharice. And thank you for asking that. Hopefully just a couple of those tidbits you can take with you.
We have a
Get,
question. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I was just saying, just practice letting go of any guilt associated with that. It's just a
Absolutely.
practice. Feel the feelings of it and go on anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
And after time, you'll feel less of the feeling of that. So thank you, Sharice.
We have a question about dress. Do you
Yes.
suggest we dress as the other teachers do, or more business casual? The elementary school I'll be working at, in the fall is very laid back. Also, what organizational tools do you suggest? My Happy Planner is currently helping me in my long-term sub position. Any apps you feel are more effective than others? There's a couple.
Great question. Okay. So the first one, I looked at the campus administration and saw and kind of tailored myself based on how I felt like they dressed. That was more so only too, because I was moving from teaching into instructional coach into administration. So just kind of followed that lead. But if you have autonomy in what you want to wear, I would definitely just wear what you feel comfortable in. Yeah, so I would do that unless there's some type of dress code or explicitly written expectation, but just dress for comfortability, and professional. How you want to present yourself, how you want your scholars to see you, and look at you. That sort of thing comes into play. So hopefully that answered that first question. And then the second one had to do with organizational tools, right, Lindsay?
Yes.
Okay.
And also, yes, organizational tools, and then sort of like if that I think works in tandem with either apps or things that we use. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. I'm trying to remember some apps, and if there are those in the chat who can throw out some organizational tools or apps that you are currently using. I can't think of one that I used beyond the system or tools of the school or the district. But I definitely had my planner, kind of like you did. Guys, I'm probably not the best to ask at that because I'm the sticky girl. There's some things I use, those types of tools for, especially if I'm on time regimen. Like even now I have up my tool for timer. I use my phone a lot for organization and calendar and just kind of keeping me in check in that way. But other than that, if there's anyone else that can share more about organizational tools, that's perfect.
I will say I'm a faithful user of something called a passion planner.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've heard of a passion planner, but they're amazing. And they like sort of it speaks to and kind of keeps on the theme, I guess, of like self-care and sort of goal setting and working to your capacity. And then you kind of set your intention for the month at the beginning of every month. And then at the end of the month, you have a space to reflect. And I really have loved to do that, especially as I'm adjusting to like life without bells,
Yeah.
My world outside of the classroom is a little different. So I have to prioritize my day and my time in different ways. But passion planner, if you are someone who is reflective or a goal setter or things like that has been a game changer for me.
I love it. Thanks for sharing that, Lindsay. And thanks for asking that question. Perfect. Was there anyone else there in the chat or who had raised their hand?
I don't know. Christopher just shared a link to some tech tools that we have in our community, our KDP community. So I think that could also be a benefit for you guys too.
Perfect.
I haven't personally checked those out. Like I said, I'm just a faithful passion planner girl. And I like my old fashioned, I'm an old person now, so I do the paper and pencil planner.
I love it, Lindsay. You're hilarious.
I'm just old now.
Oh man, I love it.
And can I also add one thing to?
Yes.
Someone asked about dress, and as a first year teacher, so I was 23 when I started teaching, and I looked like I was 17. And I taught students who were 17, and I think it was hard to set myself apart from them. I think it was hard to elevate myself, and because also I taught senior boys who were 6'4" and had full beard.
Wow, sure.
I'm 5'5". So, I mean, I was like and at the time I was like 120 pounds. So I was just a little tiny teacher. And
Yeah.
I felt like I was playing dress up a lot. I had a lunch lady holler at me for cutting in the lunch line one time. So just
Oh
some
my
different things. So I had to make
Oh,
sure.
Lindsay.
It was a whole thing. It was, and it's funny now, right? At the time I was like, I work here, I promise. But they did not like that. So I would wear heels and I would wear more formal clothes at that stage of my career. Then at the end, I was like,
Sure.
you know who I am.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
it got a much more casual as time went on, but I think it's hard to set yourself apart, especially if you're in a secondary setting. So don't be afraid to, rock a blazer and heels, if that's what you feel good
Sure.
in. If you feel
Sure.
comfortable in that. Also, don't be afraid to put on some Crocs and go for it. I mean, however I think it's, you read the room, right? You read the situation that you're in, and you go, okay, this is what I've got to do. I had to establish myself as an adult authority figure. So I had to dress like an adult. And now everybody knows I'm an adult because, like I said, I'm an old person now. So it's different, but it evolves over time. So I just wanted to share that too.
That's great. That's good insight. That is
How
good
else can we
insight.
help you guys?
I know. It's so exciting to have all of our participants join today.
Yeah, this has by far been our most robust chat. In the chat, people have participated more this time. So I like the intentionality of how you're feeling and what you're seeing.
Absolutely. And it's good. I mean, and we as educators build in that time, build in that space for those who are joining the discussion with us, our scholars, our colleagues, to participate in that way. Because, I mean, you can even see, as Lindsay and I are sharing here, the more, the merrier. So is there anyone else? I'd love to see the names there. Let me see if I can see the faces as well. But I just want you to know I'm appreciative for this time that we had to talk and discuss, and remember to pace yourself and remember what it means, perform at capacity efficiently. All those words mean something, and I want you to be successful, and I know that you will be. So I'm excited.
So will there be more KDP chats related to classroom management strategies this summer? That's a great question. And I would just encourage you to this. We are not going to do a new teacher chat in the month of July, but what we are doing is our new teacher national summit. And we have a classroom management panel coming to speak on classroom management at the elementary level, at the middle level, and at the high school level. So my goal is to have strategies at every level. It's going to be facilitated by one of our brand new board members. His name is Dr. Coleman. But I would really encourage you to register and attend that event. It's on Tuesday, July 12th. It's part of the day. It still lets you go to the pool. You can watch it from the pool. And I'm not trying to take any self-care time away from any teacher, because I know good and well what summer is more recovery than it is anything else. And so, but my hope is that we can pour into you in a meaningful way on Tuesday, July 12th at the New Teacher National Summit. But we are going to suspend New Teacher Chat for the month of July, only because the summit is happening and we want to be respectful of teachers' time, to themselves. And again, respect your boundaries and your own individual races. So that's kind of the logic behind the decision to hold off on July and resume our chats in August. But
that's great. That's so great. I'm glad someone's asking about that, because it is so true. We can have the best lessons planned, but if our classroom isn't conducive to learning and our children are out of hand and they're talking over us and they're talking over each other and all of the above, then we can't deliver.
It is virtual. The event is virtual, and some pieces of it will be live and some will be recorded depending on the speaker's availability and necessity for them. But yes, it is virtual. And if you follow that link that Christopher popped into the chat, it gives you tons of information. Our keynote speaker is someone I'm really excited about. Her name is Kim Strobel. She's a happiness coach. I think that's the coolest job maybe on the planet. I kind of want to be her when I grow up. I love everything she says. But I'm really excited to share her insight with you. She's a national and international keynote speaker, and she lives in Southern Indiana. And I miraculously connected with her and said, please, and she said yes. And so here we are. So I'm really excited to share Kim with you guys too on that day. So it is virtual, and it will be facilitated through our conference platform, and you can follow that link. And it's I'm just so very excited to bring an event to you guys like this. It's our first one, and we'll learn a lot, and then we'll make it even better the next time we do it. So that's what we've got. So I'm gonna respect Briana's time here, and I'm gonna share a couple of things with you. Just again, thank you, Briana, for your wisdom and your insight, but most of all, thank you for presenting what you presented in such a serene way. I think the way your delivery is one of those that is reassuring, and it's also encouraging and uplifting, and it gives people more confidence in themselves. And that's such a tremendous gift that you've given to our new teachers. And so, like I said, we're not going to have a new teacher chat in July, but you can follow the link in the chat to register for the New Teacher National Summit, which will kind of take place. Our teacher to teacher e-newsletter is going to come out next Monday, which will include the recording from this chat. But it's just one of the many benefits of KDP membership. If you aren't a KDP member, please make sure to visit kdp.org and click on new teachers to learn about all of our benefits. And we will be looking forward to our next opportunity to be together.